Why it was only 7,500 on the track, I don't know. I'm not a steward on that one, but there are guidelines that the stewards can abide by.
Yeah, my point being, I think this is where the drivers are sometimes questioning it, as we heard Carlos in the press conference saying, I don't fully understand, you know, how these numbers have come up with and where the money goes and things like that.
Crazy how bad the grip is compared to the 9. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, we're down to a 1:36.4 yesterday. The fastest time in the session was, what, we were on 1:37 for Oscar Piastri.
For race pace.
Oh, that's for race pace, yeah.
Yes.
I actually haven't got the fastest time, and I knew I should have written it down for Oscar Piastri. I'll find it in a couple of moments for you, Karun.
It was down in the 130s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, here goes Lewis Hamilton now. So he's done a slow lap, and he's now having another go. So he obviously aborted that first effort we saw up into turn 11, and now he's having another go. So let's see, into turn 4. And this time, yeah. So I'm pretty sure the front right tyre stayed within track limits. That's what they've done, isn't it? By widening the white line, they've given the drivers a bit more leeway up at turn 4. I'm not entirely sure why we've done that, because we've had all of these years talking about track limits up at turn 4. Remember that Max Verstappen 2021 had to give the race win back to Lewis Hamilton when he went wide at turn 4 or beyond track limits. I mean, we've had that track limit there ever since I've been coming here, and I first came in 2007. So not sure why it's changed today, but c'est la vie.
It's classic Formula 1, isn't it? You give the drivers a bit of leeway and they'll still push it right to the edge anyway. Yeah,
exactly. All they'll do is just go another few inches further wide, so why do that?
1:30.5 was Oscar Piastri's fastest time for yesterday, so we're a long way away from that. By the way, had Carlos or Williams informed the FIA that he had a medical issue and therefore might be late because of a medical issue, then he would have been fine, and he wouldn't have been fined.
Right.
But they didn't.
So that's a good point. That is procedurally, the team in advance could have highlighted it, and really that's down to the sporting directors to make those calls, isn't it? Is to try and make those decisions in advance.
Communication is everything, I think, is the point there. So 1:34.8 for Lewis Hamilton. On board now is Charles Leclerc.
You see how much he was fighting the wheel.
Yes.
The whole car just sliding as he tried to get into the apex there. A bit of a shift of the brake balance to avoid the front locking, so he made a click. Now watch the dashboard, he'll make another switch back down the straight to as he approaches the next left-hander. DRS open.
Yeah, I saw the 2 green lights. They don't stay on the Ferrari, then the green lights, when the DRS is activated. Other systems will have that green light remaining.
Does he look like he's sitting higher in the cockpit than normal? Or is it maybe just compared to Lewis, he always sits higher?
Maybe.
He definitely sits higher compared to Lewis, but
I don't notice that he's any higher than normal, to be fair. What I do remember from yesterday is Charles Leclerc saying we're nowhere in terms of pace compared to the McLarens. They might be on a pace with others, but not the 2 McLaren cars. Leclerc crosses the line and goes second fastest with a 1:34.9, 5/100ths of a second behind his teammate Lewis Hamilton. Ferrari, you get the feeling, have made plenty of setup changes overnight, which is why they are pounding around at the moment. Because it is still early stages, as Brian Bozzi, Charles Leclerc's race engineer, and only the 2 Hasses, the 2 Ferraris and the 2 Alpines have come out onto the track, or to be joined now by Gabriele Bortoleto.
By the way, you know, we saw Brian Bozzi on the pit wall. His predecessor, Xavi Marcos, who he took over from in Monaco last year. Yeah, he's technical director of Cadillac's IMSA program.
Ground control to Major Tom.
Yeah.
George Russell winning the Best Dressed Astronaut competition. That's a cooling jacket, yeah?
Well, yeah. Not sure how cool it looks, but I'm sure it keeps him cool.
It's how cool it... Ooh, a bit floaty there. It's how cool it feels rather than how cool it looks.
Yeah.
For once, George Russell is not going for the fashion stakes.
No, he's keeping that for his gardening.
You've got to think about George Russell,
that video.
gardening and power tools, haven't you?
Honestly, I did enjoy that video.
Yeah, he's doing that. Jack Doohan's advertising mattresses and beds at the moment. could only agree with that sort of route.
You love a good sleep.
Have you not seen the Jack Doohan, Mick Doohan bed adverts?
No,
oh,
no. Well, you are partial to a good mattress, so I'm sure you've
had a chat with him about it, to be fair.
Right, so they're all crawling around on these soft tyres. Gabriel Bortoleto in the Sauber. Who's he got behind him? Charles Leclerc. So Leclerc, is he going to come into the pits? He's on a very slow, cool lap as the Brazilian fans are here. And here we go, Bortoleto now starting up his first time lap of the session. Charles Leclerc does come into the pits behind, so yeah, an early benchmark there for the two Ferraris within half a tenth of each other. Gasly 4/10 ahead of Jack Doohan on the medium tyre. Doohan was actually slightly ahead in FP2 yesterday, so we'll see how he's able to carry that form into today.
Gabriel Bortoleto, who last year in Bahrain was on pole on debut in F2. The year before, he was winning on his F3 debut here, and of course won the F3 and F2 championships in successive years, something that George Russell has done, something that Charles Leclerc has done, and something that Oscar Piastri has done too.
I really rate him. I think he's really, really, you know, he's going to go under the radar. What I'm slightly concerned is, you know, Audi coming in next year, it's unrealistic to expect them to be at the front end as soon as they come in. I hope, A, that Bortoleto gets a chance to stay on and gain a bit more experience.
He's got a 2-year contract, I think.
Yeah, but he's gone off there, turn 11, bit of a wobble of the apex. But
I wonder if that is wind-induced, because that is a proper tailwind at the moment into turn 11.
Yeah, but what I hope is he doesn't get stuck and lost in that sort of midfield world, because I think he's a future prospect for a top team to think about.
I agree. No, I do agree. A very calm, level-headed young man he is too. As Yuki Tsunoda also saying the wind has increased somewhat. Bortoleto with his foot down there after going off only with a 1:38.5. Welcome back to Bahrain. This is Gabriel Bortoleto out on track, really struggling into turn 8. That wasn't the end of his struggles on the last lap. As you can see, closes the DRS, but still with a quite strong tailwind behind him, can't stay on the track down at turn 11. Meanwhile, with Bortoleto on the track, keeping his cool in the Mercedes garage is George Russell. Ted Kravitz is on cooling jacket watch.
And don't you just think that this is some kind of look cool, new clothing sponsor jacket for George Russell, because there's some very interesting technology behind it. So, Crofty and everybody watching, if you want to, Google Japanese fan jacket.
Japanese fan jacket?
Yes, because George's jacket has two fans impelling air into his jacket. The jacket is sealed at the bottom by a drawstring, and he is drawing air. The air is getting cooled by his ice vest, and then it is blowing through the top, which is unsealed, as a nice cool air blast of air into his face and around his neck. So that's the tech behind it. So a lot of Japanese construction workers wear these fan jackets. The reason why in the summer you might see them wearing full sleeve jackets and think, oh, that's a bit of a heavy, hot thing to be wearing in the summer, but it's quite common in Japanese construction.
Excellent.
And these two fans that actually bring air into the jacket, inflate it, and it means that combined with the dry ice in packets that George is wearing on his torso, it actually creates a cold breeze through his neck and chin and out through his face, through the top of the jacket. Amazing.
It is. Thank you, Ted. Innovation everywhere in Formula One. Back to the track. Max Verstappen through turn 8, Lando Norris into the final couple of corners, and we've got a 40.5 on the board for Lando Norris. This could be the fastest time so far. Crosses the line to go quickest by a second. James Vowles is the team boss down at Williams, and he's our pit boss with us this weekend. James, conditions, and good morning or good afternoon to you. Conditions very different today than last night. The wind has picked up and seems to have turned around a bit as well.
Yeah, you're spot on. So probably the bigger thing is relative to FP2, 10, 15 degrees of track temperature, which is quite significant. And then, yeah, you're spot on. The wind rotated a small amount and picked up by 5 to 10 kilometers an hour.
So yesterday, how happy were you with the progress? What have you had to change overnight?
It's, I mean, it's so close between all of the cars. So just finding a few milliseconds overnight is really important to move ourselves forward. So not super happy with a single lap. I think our long run yesterday was better. Quite a few changes to the car overnight just to try and get into a slightly better balance window. It's basically what we call a full corner balance, is too disconnected between the start to the end of the corner. So that's been the work overnight.
James, so where do you think you are? Because we saw Isaac Hadjar quick on the one lap. The suspicion is they turned the engines up a bit more on a Friday at Racing Bulls. Do we expect that fight between yourselves, Haas, and the Racing Bulls to be the group behind the top 4?
I definitely think the Racing Bulls and ourselves have the ability to get into qualifying 3. It's tight, but it's possible. The interesting one is Haas, because as you say, they're up and down depending on the day. So it was, I think, Esteban right to the back, and Bierman did a really good job. So maybe they'll be there. I think definitely, though, the V-Car and Hadjar specifically are doing well.
And James, it's not often we get surprised by the race director's event notes version 2, but we were today, given that they contain the line about Pirelli reducing the PSI on the rear tyres. It's quite a big change to bring them down by 1 PSI.
Yeah, that caught us out as well. I can't remember the last time we've dropped pressures from Friday to Saturday. It doesn't sound like a lot, does it? 1 PSI. That's quite an enormous balance change. It will help us, though. I think it will help all teams. Fundamentally, this overheating just gives you a little bit more rear grip back.
And do we think, James, we're still in between a 1 and a 2 stop? Or what's your indications from yesterday? I'm not talking about you specifically, but broadly, where do you think the race is going to be at?
I mean, I regretted this because there's some races where I thought it might go to a 2 and it went to a 1. I think it's borderline still between the two of them, and it will really depend on how we get off tomorrow in terms of the initial pace off the grid. So I think both are possible in the race. Probably more pushing towards a 2 than a 1.
We'll wait and see. James, thanks ever so much. Join you in qualifying. Good luck for today as Pierre Gasly pops up 3rd fastest on the medium tyre. Fernando Alonso currently 2nd fastest. Now he's got his steering wheel attached.
Yes.
So much more pace in the Aston Martin. And Lando Norris quickest on a 1:33.7. Here then is his teammate Oscar Piastri going for a faster lap on those soft compound tyres and acing the middle sector with a 40.1. He's probably about a 10th outside of Max Verstappen's fastest time in the first sector, and you saw Verstappen had to abort that flying lap when he went wide.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, we were watching from the helicopters, so it was a little bit hard to tell, but I'm pretty sure Lando went wide at turn 11 as well. So I'm not surprised to see such a big difference in the middle sector, to be honest. If you look at the 1st and the 3rd sectors, Piastri and Lando pretty similar. The middle one, I think, from the helicopter at least, it looked like Lando dropped a bit of time at 11.
That's quite a big gap between Piastri and Norris, and that might explain where Lando did drop a bit of time. Half a second between Piastri and Norris. Sainz on the hard tyre. Red Bull had saved a couple of sets of the hard compound tyre, which did make us think, is that the way they're going to be going for the race? 2 hards and a medium rather than 2 mediums and a hard.
It could be. I mean, we're seeing Tsunoda running the hard tyre now, aren't we? Verstappen is not on track, so we don't know what he's going to do.
He's just run the soft so far.
Yeah, so they are running one set of hards to edge, I think, on Tsunoda's car at the moment, aren't they?
Yes. Why is Max Verstappen in the garage? Ted Kravitz has the answers.
Because you heard the radio message where he's effectively said he wasn't particularly happy with the balance of the car during you were talking to James Vowles, Crofty. If you didn't, that's more or less what he said. And he's making a rear suspension change now. I can see one torsion bar coming out, another one going in, and they're going to try again. Will they get close? Will it be Mercedes as the runner-up to the McLarens, or will Verstappen develop the car from yesterday and get in amongst it? Big question for me. What do you think?
Well, if anyone can do it, on the evidence of Suzuka, Max Verstappen can do it. He was on pole and won from pole here last year. I think it's if Max Verstappen was to get on pole and win this from pole, then that is Red Bull very much,
Yes.
you know, on a par with McLaren, because we know you can overtake on this track, and we also know that Suzuka is a bit of a quick Monaco. You've only got one DRS zone, and overtaking is not the easiest on the planet. I'm not sure. I'm not as confident that he can make as much of a difference as he needs to this week, but I'm led to believe that he might have been running a little bit more fuel than others on his performance laps in FP2 yesterday.
Yeah, but I think they are behind. You know, I think that the fuel probably accounts for the fact that he was 8 tenths behind, but they are realistically still 3 or 4 tenths behind. I think that's where they are. But what do you think McLaren will do, Crofty? If we see them 1, 2, 3 or 4 tenths clear of the pack, they've got to be free to race, haven't they? I want to see a Norris versus Piastri. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen like a duel in the desert type, Nico Lewis type battle. We haven't seen a Norris versus Piastri ding-dong.
I agree.
And I'd like to see that.
It's got to be a Hamilton-Rosberg 2.0, as it were. But both drivers, for me, have got to go into that race knowing full well what the rules of engagement are. So, unlike maybe Monza last year, where Lando leaves a gap because he's not expecting his teammate to come steaming down the inside. His teammate comes steaming down the inside, overtakes him, and a 1-2 turns into a 2-3. So if they're free to race, both drivers need to know that they're free to race at all times.
Yeah.
Or are you free to race once you've got the first lap out of the way? Yeah, because that's where you get the big kerfuffles on lap 1. Or is it driver who gets ahead into turn 1, stays ahead and gets preferential treatment and preferential strategy, and is not going to be opposed by his teammate for the rest of that 57 laps?
Yeah, exactly. All of the above. But what I really want them to do is allow them to be free to race.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, look, I'm definitely with you, and I would imagine a large majority of our audience are with you as well. And it should be, right, OK, guys, out you go. Keep it clean. Race each other hard, but fair, and don't damage the cars.
Yeah.
But that is easier said than done.
Yeah, but you gotta trust the drivers. You've got to trust them that they're not gonna take that last 2% risk. But equally, let them race. We want to see them race, and I'm that's the one thing I feel like we haven't yet seen. Yeah. A straight Lando versus Piastri teammate on teammate battle, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I think it's what we all want to see, and it's, yeah, Mercedes had that luxury in 2014 here, where they could go and do that, because I mean, look, the engine was barely turned up to 75% during the course of that race, and they were still a long way clear of the rest. Red Bull have had that luxury here in the past, where they have been head and shoulders above the rest of the field. Are McLaren far enough ahead of the rest of the field where they can adopt that let-the-race mentality? I mean, if they're separated like this for most of the race, in either order, we'll have some of that, won't we, as they cross the lines. Piastri ahead of Norris still, with the tyres not holding out for a second lap, it has to be said. And that last lap was a 1:41 from Norris and an out lap from Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, but Norris did improve his middle sector. He had another lap. So on his second push, he improved the middle sector by about a tenth, which underlines the point I was making earlier. He made a mistake.
Yeah, it didn't improve the first and third.
First and third was for.
And there's Oscar Piastri at 10th and a half. I think it's a fascinating prospect, but in the back of my mind, I do think McLaren are right. Their advantage is not necessarily as significant as we all think. And certainly they're trying to play down that advantage.
Yeah, I feel... I want to see how qualifying plays out, obviously, but I feel like here their qualifying advantage is a bit more than in Japan, where frankly they got surprised, didn't they? We all got surprised by Verstappen delivering that amazing lap to take pole. I think they've got a little bit more of an advantage here, but when the temperatures drop, I'm interested to see how the Red Bulls cope with that, because yesterday clearly Verstappen in the first two sectors was okay, and then overheating.
The wind is making a big difference into 11 especially.
Liam Lawson, who's currently 10th fastest, hasn't put the soft tyres on yet. Oscar Piastri crosses the line, improves in the final sector, but was substantially down through sectors 1 and 2. Do you remember your question about why is it that Carlos Sainz got fined more for being late for a national anthem than Alex Albon did for the impeding on the track?
Yes.
The answer to that is that the penalty guidelines for, you know, sporting regulations offences on track have been compiled generally by the F1 stewards, working with the race director and the single-seater department, the team sporting directors, etc. Oh dear, that's Nico Hülkenberg celebrating 15 years in Formula 1.
Car with the 20 still, just by itself. What's going on? Car switch is still off, engine is off.
And his car not wanting to join in the celebrations. That's down at turn 8, and it's gone into anti-stall, and we've got a virtual safety car because they're going to need those marshals down there to come and recover that stricken Sauber.
I think they're going to... Well, hopefully they can... there's a neutral button on the top of the monocoque. You can see on the dashboard the car was stuck in 3rd gear. There's a neutral button that the marshals can press on the top of the car, and then at that point, it effectively, it's like pulling the clutch in, effectively. So it allows the marshals to wheel the car around and get it behind the barrier. But what we don't want is a red flag. So hopefully they can get out of the way.
Yeah. So to recap, the penalty guidelines for that offence on track. That's the F1 stewards working with race director, single-seater department, sporting directors, etc. The penalty guidelines for swearing and being late for ceremonies, that's a formal decision in the International Sporting Code that has been applied and implemented by other people than the stewards.
Guys, let me know what you want me to do.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we can get going again, Nico.
So that just kind of clears that up. 2 different parts of the organisation making up the decisions. He's got a decision to make. Jonathan Wheatley as team principal now. Who to deploy, where to deploy, and how to get that Sauber ready for qualifying. Ted Kravitz, to you.
And that's a bit gutting, actually, for Sauber, because they were looking like Q2 contenders this weekend, Crofty. So, especially with Nico Hülkenberg, although optimistically with Gabriel Bortoleto as well. Track he knows well after lots of testing. So just by the garage, the guys are ready to bring Bortoleto in. Just by the looks of the mechanics, it doesn't look like they're entirely serious. They don't look too worried. So I think it is just going to be get the car back, sort out whatever glitch it was that shut the engine down, the power unit down, turned off the car, and then get it going again. So you haven't seen any smoke or anything like that. So hopefully it'll be a quick turnaround. But of course, Nico Hülkenberg will not have any qualifying preparation, but he's overcome bigger hurdles than that in his career. Crofty, just one thing from down here. You know how we see team principals come and go in this sport?
Yes.
Well, you don't see many of them go from team principal to lowly pit reporter, down to my level, Crofty. But we do have one today. Hello, Marcin Budkowski.
Yes.
Late the team boss of the Renault team, of course, Alpine. Now, working for Polish TV. That's nothing new. But what is new is that they've decided he should be a pit reporter for the session. They all join me down here in the end.
I'm thinking, Ted, there's a feature to be done where you now become a team principal.
Oh, God.
Ted talks to the factory. I think you would make a fine team principal.
Which team?
Which team would you want to be team principal of, Ted?
Hello. I don't mind any of them.
Come on, you
hey,
must...
listen, 28 years experience in Formula One, it's got to give you something.
Absolutely.
The fact that I've never worked in management, never worked for a team, or don't know anything about engineering. Well, I don't know a bit about engineering or management or anything like that. But yeah, how hard can it be?
Ask Marcin Budkowski.
Yeah, I would. That's George Russell locking up on what was his first flying lap on the medium tyre. He might have been a bit compromised even if he hadn't locked up, because it was round about when the virtual safety car period came out. I'd like to see Ted replace Toto.
Oof.
Yeah, and I'd like to see
big
Rosie Waite there, head of race strategy, being told by Ted Kravitz exactly what the strategy is going to be today. And I'd love to hear Rosie's response.
Yeah, it would be brilliant.
Make it happen, Karun.
Well, I can't make it happen. Ted's going to make it happen.
You've got contacts. You can make it happen, I'm sure. Antonelli through the middle sector. Mercedes doing something very different. to everybody else out there at the moment and running more race simulations than trying to improve their qualifying pace, which Kimi Antonelli, talking to him earlier today, was quietly confident about. At the moment, 12th fastest, still a long way to go in this session. Meanwhile, here's Max Verstappen, who goes second fastest, 2.5 tenths down on Oscar Piastri. And unless they are a new set of soft tyres, which I don't think they are, Karun Chandok, it's not a bad lap, to be fair.
No, he's never underestimated, can you? But that sort of 2-3 tenths, that's the gap that he and the Red Bull camp was saying that they're lacking yesterday, wasn't it? So obviously they were carrying more fuel, so they didn't show their hand, perhaps.
It wouldn't have counted.
Way off track, though.
Yeah. That is the easiest way to take turn 4, which is why track limits are there, ladies and gentlemen.
That wasn't even close.
No. So he's not going to attempt to do that deliberately. Is that the car still with handling problems, or is he just carrying too much speed in there?
Yeah. And he's just testing the limits, isn't he? That's what practice is for. So let's see. So George Russell on the medium tyre, same as Kimi Antonelli. So I don't think they're doing the racing properly. I think they're just running the medium tyre on maybe a bit more fuel. So they don't need to refuel perhaps before the end. Because he's done a 35.0. Now that's a lot quicker than any race pace that we saw yesterday.
Yeah, it'll be end of race pace or latter stages of.
Maybe they're running sort of 40-odd kilos instead of 60, 70 kilos of fuel. So we'll see what Russell does. A little bit of, I thought it looked like he had a bit of a flat spot there in the front left. He does have a little bit of a flat spot front left.
After that lock-up we saw at turn 1.
Yeah. And a bit of grainy perhaps on the front right. I'm not sure, but the front right looks like it's got a bit of markup as well. As it comes into the final corner, so Russell at the moment. Oh, a little bit deep there. That would have compromised his exit. Just went in a bit too hot. That would have hurt his exit up to the line, and he's popped up into 11th. A little bit ahead of Antonelli.
Yeah, make that 12th behind Doohan, Hadjar, Lawson and Hulkenberg, who was 8th fastest. By the time the anti-stall kicks in and his car grounds to a halt. There is Toto Wolff with Valtteri Bottas to his right-hand side, watching on. This is George Russell getting past Liam Lawson in the racing balls and into the final couple of corners on that lap we just saw. That's what it looked like for Liam Lawson.
Dude, like, just so annoying. No point to do that.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that, Liam, to be fair. George, you're going slow to try and make a gap. George is actually
on a push lap.
On a push lap and on a run, so why wouldn't he do that? I wonder how this is now going to unfold, because look, George is now cooling his tyres, and now Liam gets past him without any trouble whatsoever.
Yeah, and if anything, you know, you'd say Liam, if he was anyway going to back off, just back off earlier in the straight and let George come back on the racing line to do the last corner.
Yeah, that's just, I think today, in these temperatures, we're going to see a bit of short temperism, because it's very difficult to keep you cool. It really is. So welcome back to Bahrain. This is Max Verstappen with the second fastest time of this session. But here at turn 4, that is the faster way to take an exit, and faster than you're allowed to do, because he's gone over the white lines and is exceeding track limits by quite some margin. So despite a 1:33.5, that lap would not have counted had it have been qualified. This is George Russell getting past Liam Lawson. George Russell was on a push lap. Liam Lawson was trying to make space, and why shouldn't he do that if he was on a push lap? Meanwhile, spot the difference, right to left, Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. Mirror on one side, Karun, no mirror on the other side.
I mean, he gets 7 years of bad luck, or the person who put the mirror on gets 7 years of bad luck.
And that That you do not want to see. A mirror just flying off like that. So, what are they stuck down with? What are they attached with?
Well, it looks like there were two fixed things, wasn't it? You can see two bits that are on the black carbon sticking up. So,
well, the two fixings are still in place.
Yeah, so something's failed on the way it's been attached. So, yeah, certainly the FI don't want to be seeing bits of car flying around the track, especially if you've got other cars following.
Is this... All teams do this, and I'm not saying Ferrari do this, but it's a speculation point. But all teams have been doing this, and that's in their bid to make these cars hit the minimum weight and not be overweight. The more you strengthen something up, the more it weighs because you've got more layers on there. Is that just taking things down a little bit too far because you've now seen a failure and something fly off?
I think it's hard to speculate that. You know, it could be just a metal insert the way it's bolted on. It could be the fact that maybe it wasn't just tight enough in the first place. So don't forget, as I say, they take these cars apart and put it back together at a pretty regular rate. So it could have been an installation issue. You know, we haven't seen it happen until today, and this is now the 4th race weekend. So my point being, if there was a design flaw,
we'd have seen it before.
We'd have seen it earlier, probably.
Ted, to you.
Well, Crofty, we were talking yesterday about how great F1 mechanics were and how they can change various, they can change the steering column in 10 minutes. Well, that was Aston Martin. Today it's Ferrari. And if a truck goes past your car and takes off your wing mirror, you know how annoying that is. Not your fault. Your car was parked overnight, wasn't it, Crofty? Although I don't know whether you have street parking or maybe a drive. But for those of us who only have street parking available, it is a hazard. But it looks like the actual wing mirror and assembly sort of, plastic coaming, if you want to call it like that, has just sort of snapped off. I can see bits of where it was bolted there, but you never know, a combination of a crack here or there, or some vibrations from a curb might have weakened it, and then it's popped off. It's actually quite an easy fix. The mechanics are just unscrewing the whole assembly, and they're going to bolt a new one on. It's only going to keep Charles Leclerc in the garage for about 7 minutes, I'd estimate, and then send them out there and then do the stress analysis of why exactly it popped off in the first place. I hope it didn't go into the crowd or bounce off the track, Crofty, and hit somebody. That would not be good.
Yeah, I don't think he was at a part of the track where there were grandstands about, but you don't want to see things flying off the car like that. Meanwhile, heading off the road, this is Gabriel Portoletto showing that Max was a bit of a handful.
I just got a snap of oversteer as he tried to put the power down coming out of 13. It is a tricky corner because you're sort of slightly dropping downhill and then trying to unleash 1,000 horsepower on a track that's not particularly grippy. Although I have to say the temperature is still dropping now. So we're down to 40 degrees track temperature. I think we started up at 44, was it, at the beginning of the session? So it is steadily dropping.
The mirror man has a new wing mirror for Charles Leclerc. And there you can see the assembly all fits into place. But I don't know what's holding the mirror onto the carbon fibre structure.
Well, there's two little pillars you could see underneath. And actually, that's where it goes.
Off.
Where does it go?
Over the fence.
That's a nice souvenir for somebody out there. Get that on eBay.
I think there is a grandstand down there as well, isn't there? But we've just briefly had a yellow flag. So I wonder if anything else has popped off. George Russell getting all a bit slidey there.
Whoa. He's had a full spin. Wow.
Yes.
I don't ever recall seeing that coming out of turn 10. Somebody having a full spin. Oh, they started to slide on the way in, then managed to get it turned around the corner. But as the car goes through that compression and came out the other side and starts to pick the power up and around he goes.
Turn 10 was not exactly an easy corner for George Russell yesterday either.
No, he sort of went around like a roundabout, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
To the right. So there's his race engineer, Marcus Dudley. I'm sure he'll have a look at what exactly went on there, because it started at the entry as he was coming into the corner with the rear stability.
probably go as far as I was the least amount of grip I've ever had in an F1 car.
And George Russell has had 131 of previous Grand Prix experience in an F1 car, so he's in a fair few laps.
Yeah, including some in those early days at Williams, where the car was really not very good. So it's quite a big statement.
Yeah, let's see how Yuki Tsunoda gets on his latest flying lap.
So he's on a set of the soft tyres. His benchmark, a 33.5. Yesterday, he was a long way off Max Verstappen. He was way down the times in 18th place. So, you know, and 7/10 off Max. He's aborted already on this first sector alone. So, not sure why. It didn't look like I saw any obvious mistakes there.
So Yuki not going for a fastest or a flying lap fully, so we can head back down to Ted.
Could be there's no grip for him in that Red Bull as well, but you know, time waits for no man, and Crofty, the two championship leaders, well, championship leading drivers, Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, have both also just gone out on a brand new set of soft tyres. So you'll see them in about 45 seconds time starting their hot laps. But how useful will they really be, seeing as it's still pretty warm out here, much warmer than it will be when they put them on next at the beginning of qualifying 1.
40 degrees currently the track temperature. Fernando Alonso.
A lot of understeer there.
Yeah,
at the middle part of 11.
And that's that lack of grip as well. You just look at the way he's seesawing with its the steering wheel.
Yeah. Oh, again at 13, just can't get the car to rotate. Just sliding across the front axle there. So, yeah, it's a horribly frustrating feeling in the cockpit of a Grand Prix car when you've got that level of understeer, because you have nothing else you could do apart from wait. You just have to eventually wait for the front end to bite, and then it'll turn. Alonso goes stays fourth fastest, I should say.
I wonder if that is something fundamental with that Aston Martin, though, mid-corner, where you're just getting all that understeer.
Well, certainly on that lap, it looks like it.
Yeah, it does.
You know, we need to see more in different conditions, different tyres, but certainly on that lap, there's a huge amount of mid-corner understeer there. So Alex Albon, fastest of anyone in the first sector. The track temperature is down, you know, as I say, 4 or 5 degrees from when we started the session. Still probably 5-6 degrees up from what we'll see in qualifying. But Alex Albon, 40.7, solid in the middle sector, but the heavy hitters have now started their laps. Verstappen on a lap, Norris on a lap, Piastri winding himself up as we see Alex Albon come up to the line, and this should take him into the top 5.
Might take him to the top 4, and does, half a second behind Oscar Piastri, and he was getting a little toe as well behind Pierre Gasly. On board with Max Verstappen, set-up changes in that Red Bull car continually through this practice session. Felt like he was just hanging on and waiting an age to get the car slowed down. We can pick up Lando Norris as he makes his way out of turn 8.
Just some micro corrections on the way in for Max, and all of that just hurts the confidence he will have on corner entry. Get the nose in. Norris only about 10 seconds behind him on the road. Verstappen up through 11.
And 4/10 down, Lando Norris on Max Verstappen through that first sector.
Yeah, Jack Doohan has done the fastest first sector of anybody, but I do think if anyone attacks the first sector too hard, you run out of tyres. Norris has aborted his lap, by the way. He's abandoned this particular effort. So let's look at what Verstappen does for his benchmark. Piastri, a storming first sector. Wow. Look at Oscar Piastri, 4/10 quicker than anything anyone has managed.
So here's Max Verstappen then, moving top with a 1:33.0. Oscar Piastri, 29.1 for the first sector. Bravo, but is it too much bravado? And has he gone too quick, as you were suggesting, and taken too much out of the tyres through that first bit? And that seemed to be what was happening a bit with Max Verstappen yesterday, pushing so hard in the first sector, he had no tyres left by the end of the lap.
Yeah, Gasly's gone quicker than Verstappen, so we'll see the Alpine working well here. Let's see what Piastri does in the middle sector, and that'll answer the question, Crofty. And I think the answer is no, the McLaren is just that much faster.
Still got a bit more in hand at this particular juncture for Oscar Piastri. Isaac Hadjar only a 1/10.5 down through the first 2 sectors, but he might find himself a long way behind by the time Oscar Piastri finishes. And he finishes the lap now, crosses the line, and it's a 1:31.6 for Oscar Piastri. 1.3 seconds clear of Pierre Gasly. Here comes Isaac Hadjar, and that takes him third fastest, just behind Pierre Gasly. Backs up, just what a good lap Pierre Gasly put in his Alpine. Now, Kimi Antonelli, as the sun, you can see, starting to just sink a little bit in the sky. Sunset is around about 6 o'clock here in Bahrain. Goes second fastest. He's 1.2 seconds behind, but we're quite happy, I'm sure, to be P2 if he stays there.
I mean...
It's a lap and a half for Piastri, that.
Unbelievable. I mean, we're just watching everybody come through. Let's see what Lawson does. So Hadjar a 33.0. Lawson comes across the line 33.3, so 0.3 off. And again, you've got 3 Red Bull cars in a line, 4th, 5th, 6th, and again, Isaac Hadjar, the quickest of the 4 Red Bull drivers.
Yeah, and further ahead than Max Verstappen than he was in FP2 yesterday. There's Yuki Tsunoda going for another flying lap, and another flying lap that's gone a begging as he's looking left and right to try and get back on the track again after locking up. Now, why did Lando Norris bail out of his flying lap? I think we're about to see. Yeah,
went in too hot into 11. Just, you could see, carrying too much speed, understeered off the track there. But he was already down, wasn't he, in sector 1? He was already a long way off.
And that was way before Piastri put his lap in.
Yeah.
Ollie Behrman trying to take a different track there. There's 5 certified FIA licensed tracks here at the Sakhir circuit, and I think he was trying to go to another one than the one we're actually racing on for whatever reason. Here's Jack Doohan into turn 11, where you're still being pushed into that corner a bit by a tailwind.
Yeah, it's a shame because his first sector was good and then it's gone away from him. But it's just showing, isn't it, how difficult the track conditions are with this wind at the moment. Lots of people struggling at turn 11.
George Russell is a second down through the first 2 sectors, but don't worry too much, because if he can put in a personal best final sector, he might yet go P2 here in this practice session. But the gap to Piastri is still going to be substantial for the Mercedes driver. Russell crosses the line and does go P2 ahead of his teammate Kimi Antonelli, just less than 1/10 of a second separating the 2 Mercedes cars. Carlos Sainz now on a lap, and he's put in the same first sector time as George Russell managed just a few moments ago.
But there are lots of quick cars out there who have gone out and done a lap time at a very similar track conditions to Oscar Piastri.
Yeah.
And nobody's within a second of him. When was the last time that happened in a dry session?
Well, when was the last time Max Verstappen was on pole by quite a margin? Japan last year, here last year.
Yeah.
I mean,
But a second.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I can't believe how fast these McLarens are at the moment.
You're not the only one. You're not the only one thinking that. Sainz crosses the line 7th fastest. Now, Lando Norris was 2/10 down on Oscar through the first sector as he tries to string together 3 decent sectors and to put a lap in. Hamilton, half a second down. That's that same half a second that George Russell found, that Carlos Sainz found. So he's in that sort of ballpark through the first part of the lap. Leclerc, meanwhile, has matched Lando Norris with a 29.3 on this latest lap. So they're 2/10 down on Oscar. For the middle sector, Lando Norris has put in a 39.7, so he was about 4/10 down and ends up just under 7/10 down. He's lost about 2/10 in every sector to his teammate on a set of tyres that had already done a sector and a bit before he had to back out at turn 11.
Yeah, he's taken some life out of it, but I still think Piastri's got the upper hand, as he did yesterday. But Leclerc, as you said, Crofty, he was up 3/10 sector 1 on Hamilton, 2/10 middle sector on Hamilton, so half a second up on Hamilton's time. We'll see where the upgraded Ferrari is, and still 8/10 off the McLaren.
Yeah, which is, better than Mercedes have fared, and certainly better than his teammate. 10th only for Lewis Hamilton, who continued to lose time on that particular lap. Hamilton, who's started 8th, 5th and 8th for the 3 Grand Prix so far this year, and then started on pole for the sprint. Explain that one.
I don't think they can. Although I still think there's a temperature-related thing to this, because where were Ferrari struggling? Saturday in Melbourne, where it was roasting hot, 36 degrees ambient and mid-40s track. They're struggling here.
That's a good lap. We just lost a bit turn 4 last corner, but that's a really good lap.
It was quite a poor lap, but okay.
I actually agree with Carlos, because he was wide of the apex in most of the last sector. So, yeah, I think there's a lot more potential in that Williams. But I think Ferrari do struggle in the heat. If you think of China, I went back from the Shanghai race, and everyone I bumped into the next week kept saying, what on earth happened? He won the sprint. Then what happened? and I think if we think back, it was pretty cool in the morning of that Saturday morning sprint. Yeah. It was pretty cool on Friday when they did the Friday quali. And then the temperatures rose through the Saturdays into Sunday, and the pace went away from Ferrari. And I wonder again here, right, in these hot temperatures, which means to say that when we get into Q3, and on current form, he's going to be the edge of getting into Q3. It's cooler. It might come back to them a bit.
Meanwhile, the man who used to be in the seat Lewis Hamilton's in now, Carlos Sainz, whatever you would say about that lap, it was better than Alex Albon managed. It was like an 0.8 of a second difference, wasn't it?
Yeah. Between
himself and Albon. And that's got to be his first target, to try and out-qualify Alex Albon today.
Yeah, Albon's gone back out now, and he'll have time for one push lap, so we'll see what he does with that. Jack Doohan, we saw him go off the track roughly, didn't we, at turn 11 on the previous effort. Let's see what this does.
DRS open, powers to the line, goes 12th fastest.
4/10. Gasly.
Look, it's a good lap for Pierre Gasly.
Yeah.
But Pierre Gasly, I wouldn't say he's like a track specialist here, but he's produced some fairly decent qualifying performances. 5th back in 2018, 5th in 2021, you know, and that 5th was for Toro Rosso, wasn't it?
Well, that 5th in 2018 was really significant, wasn't it? Because that was the weekend that told Red Bull that the Honda engine was good, and they ditched the Renault to go to Honda after Gasly's qualifying and race here.
It's certainly a track I think he quite likes. Jack Doohan there, I think that's probably where the Alpine is, around about P12. If they can get the car up to there, they'd be quite happy with it. Anything more is a bonus. Nico Hülkenberg has got to the back of the garage. You saw Mattia Binotto in the background. He's in charge of the factory as the CEO. Jonathan Wheatley's in charge at the track. That's how the division of labour and management resources is centred at Sauber. And Mattia very much in charge of the Audi project for the future and bringing together all of those strands.
Yeah, we're going to speak to Jonathan Wheatley after the session, so I'm sure we'll hear more from him about that. But
Tsunoda's back out on the hard tyre. Tsunoda has not got a full performance lap in on the soft tyre. So he's going to go into qualifying without, you know, as near a reference point as everyone else around this track. That might not be a bad thing, because he'll think back to last night rather than this afternoon.
Yeah, but he was 18th last night.
Okay, maybe it is a bad thing.
And he's 19th today, so okay.
I'm trying to see the positives.
One place happier than he is now.
I'm trying to see the positives from him. Give him a break, Karun. Come on.
It's not worked out for him this weekend, has it? In Japan, there were so many reasons for optimism.
Yeah.
And it's just, since Q2 of Japan, it's just not looked like that anymore.
Correct. He could do with a really solid weekend. Yeah, do a lot of that. Overtake his teammate, Max Verstappen.
Yeah. I mean, how many teammates would wish to have seen that? Seen that sight, overtaking Max Verstappen.
I mean, he's go back over the teammate, all of them.
Yeah.
To be fair, since Daniel Ricciardo left Red Bull, I don't think they've had a teammate to Max Verstappen that has had the potential ability, whatever you want to call it, to get as close to Max as Daniel Ricciardo ever got.
Yeah, and we have to caveat that, right? It was still early in Max's racing career. We have to remember he only did 1 year of F3 before that. We have to remember, really, towards the end of that phase where they were teammates, Max did have the upper hand, I think, in that final season of the two cars being together. So, yeah, I think, but you're right. You know, Alex Albon
doing a George Russell there,
yeah,
but not spinning around completely. George Russell did a proper spin. It shows you how the lack of grip down at turn 9 and 10. The track will change quite a bit as it cools down, and the tyres will find their sweet spot.
Yeah, the lap time is 1.1 seconds slower than it was yesterday. That just tells you how much slower the track is and how much hotter it is. But the track temperature down to 39 degrees, and by the time we get back to qualifying, the cooler temperatures will give the drivers more grip, more confidence. The wind, though, is not looking to die down. I think that if I look at the flags, they're still gusting around.
Oke, teman-teman, thank you yang udah nonton, yang lagi nonton di TikTok maupun di YouTube. Berhubung free practice-nya udah selesai dan ini masih sesi latihan ya teman-teman. Jadi jangan panik, jangan takut tiba-tiba wah kok di sini, wah kok gini. Jangan, santai aja. Ini masih sesi latihan teman-teman. Jadi para pembalap lagi mencoba untuk mencari settingan yang pas untuk sesi kualifikasi nanti jam 11 dan juga besok balapannya di jam 10 malam. Jadi stay tune teman-teman, nanti jam 11 malam akan ada Watchalong lagi. Dan semoga tim yang kalian suka, driver yang kalian suka bisa perform bagus. Thank you semuanya, sampai jumpa, bye-bye.
It's like a glitch I can't control. Someone's fucking with my dough. Kind of voodoo shit, you know. You won't find me tongue-tied. No witness on my side. Harmonies when I cry. This stuff makes me nauseous. Losing what they taught us. Gotta tread real cautious. But I go back to